Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Cool Downs. These episodes are short, actionable podcasts pulled from previous interviews and content we've been publishing for the last several years. So go for a walk, hop on the rower, or clip into the bike for this cool down episode. That's incredible. I think, at first hearing, basically by definition, you said integration equals health, and I was like, well, let's, what are we talking about? How does that work? Having heard you kind of explain how that all fits together, and you talked about, it affecting people from depression to, you actually mentioned the outside of cells, shaping up and getting better. So really it all stems from integration of the brain. What would you say the biggest limiting factor or something that's holding us back in getting to more consciousness or more integration? What do you think is holding us back from doing these things a little bit more organically?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Jared. And I would say there are a couple of things. One is, in our modern times, we have gotten so used to the world around us taking control of our attention, so that we are drawn to this app or that app or this thing on a screen of a computer or whatever. And so we haven't really learned the art of having an internally generated organizer of where our attention goes. So we're externally pulled rather than internally the captain of our ship, basically. So it's like being, just to keep the boat analogy going, it's like the boat's got no rudder, it's got no steering wheel, and the wind is just blowing it around, right? And let's just call that, for a simple term, automatic pilot, meaning the stuff around us is just pulling us here and there. So consciousness, being awake and aware and intentional in living, is a beautiful, beautiful example of empowerment to turn off the automatic pilot, to put a rudder in the sea, to get your steering wheel for that boat. And whether it's a motorboat and you're driving around, or if you like sailing, you put up your sails and you're the one who's going to go through the winds. You may not determine all the winds of the world, but you've now got your sails down. You got your not just your rudder so you can steer, but you got your keel. So you know how to move this boat through the water. As someone who doesn't know sailing will probably be so confused with what I'm saying. but the idea is that the world around you is going to always have wind blowing at you.
Right.
The wheel of awareness builds all the structures of your mind that you need to actually guide yourself through the winds of life. Right. And so the second thing I'll just say is that besides automatic pilot is that, in school, we're not given the opportunity to learn to develop these reflective skills. I mean, this is kind of a sad thing to say, but not only in the field of mental health do people not define the mind, but neither do school educators. So we're taught a lot of facts and skills and stuff, but no one ever teaches us how to actually develop an inner compass to build this capacity to have a strong, resilient mind. So a lot of the work I do in schools now is to say, hey, let's wake up to this sad reality that the field of mental health and the field of education don't define the mind. And yet if you ask people in either of those fields, what are you doing? They'll say, oh, I'm helping cultivate a healthy mind, or I'm helping build the mind of the youth of America, or whatever, wherever we are. You say, well, what is the mind? They go, what? And I go, what is the mind? Like, well, no one ever told us in our education. I said, right. So this is part of the issue, is that everything is external. When you realize the mind is both an inner and an interpersonal process, and understand it's a regulatory process, this is the self-organizing, what I call embodied and relational regulatory process, you can teach regulation. Like, Jared, if you're going to ride a bike, you want to monitor where you're going and modify. You want to listen with your ears. You want to feel the balance of your body. You want to watch with your eyes. That's all monitoring. But to regulate, you don't just monitor. You've got to modify, like steer the wheel, pedal the pedals, put on the brakes when you need to. That's how you modify a bike. Well, the mind is a regulatory process too. See, a self-organizing, embodied and relational process is regulating energy and information flow is our definition. That's the technical one I didn't say before. But once you offer that definition, which I offered back in 1992, a long time ago, then you say, well, how do you optimize self-organization? Well, you do it with integration. That we've talked about that. But then you say, well, how do I if the mind is a regulatory process, how do I actually build a strong mind? And then it's very simple. Stabilize monitoring. So you see with more depth, clarity, and detail. And then learn to modify what the energy and information flow, how toward integration. It's kind of that simple. And amazingly, people are never given that. So you ask, why doesn't happen more organically? Because people think it's all external. It's all external. So with this simple definition, you get this very practical notion. Let's teach you how to monitor with more stability. And then what people describe in the 10,000 person study is, oh my God, I started seeing so many details I've never heard before, seen before, smelled before, tasted before, felt with my touching, felt inside my body. I'm so amazingly aware. I guess the stuff was there before, but I didn't know. So that's the first thing that is so exciting. The second thing is you say, you're in charge of moving that spoke around. So instead of being on automatic pilot where you're pulled up to the rim, you're now sitting in that hub with this huge expanse of awareness. So that if you think about it this way, before let's say your hub of your wheel was like the size of an espresso cup and life dished you out some real challenging thing like a tablespoon of salt. And Jared, what would it taste like if you had like an espresso cup of water? We took a huge billowing tablespoon of salt, dumped it into your cup and said, Jared, drink.
Tastes salty.
You wouldn't be able to drink it. It's
No.
so salty. But let's say we did a training like the Wheel of Awareness, and we took that container of awareness, which before, like most people, was the size of an espresso cup, and we made it like 100 gallons big. And now we take the same life challenge. Here's a tablespoon of salt, Jared. We stick it in your 100-gallon container, stir it up, and what's that water going to taste like?
Yeah, it'd be negligible.
That's right,
Yeah.
negligible. It'd be fresh water, basically.
Yeah.
That's what the Wheel of Awareness does. It makes your container of awareness so vast that the same thing that before overwhelmed you when you were an automatic pilot, now with this huge hub of awareness, you're like a different person. And that's how people describe, they go, I don't know what this wheel did to me, but whoa, and it's like, okay, it's integrating your mind. And that's the beauty when I said you draw from all the science. I write science books and stuff, and I write practical books. The thing that's so fun about combining it together is that you don't have to worry about the science. You're going to get the practical findings that, it only come from a deep scientific dive. But then once you say, okay, that looks like that's what the nature of mind is, or the nature of a healthy mind. Now let's do the practical stuff. That's all you need to know.
Thanks for listening to today's Cool Down. If for some ridiculous reason you are not subscribed to Garage Gym Athlete programming, fix that problem right now. Go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial, get started with us today. Thanks for listening.